I've been thinking about this series for quite some time now. It's about to be a busy 5 years. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ben Kim, and today we're bringing you a new series, maybe one of the most exciting series all year, the 5-year 180K debt-free challenge. So, as you might be able to tell by the name of the series, the goal of this is to wipe out 100K of student debt within 5 years. And that's pretty crazy when you look at the numbers. So here's a study done by the APTA in 2020 that looked at new grad student debt. This study surveyed over 500 PT new grads, and they found that these new grads anticipated that it would take on average 16.2 years for them to pay off their debt. And furthermore, the APTA thinks this is actually a low estimate because according to the US Department of Education, individuals take approximately 20 years to pay off a 20 to 40K loan. According to the APTA study, nearly 93% of recent physical therapist graduates are carrying debt of an average rate of $152,882. So we got our work cut out for us. It's no secret that the average outpatient physical therapist is gonna have a hard time paying off their student debt due to significant tuition cost increases and a low financial ceiling. But in this series, I'm gonna try and show you guys how I'm gonna do this using strategic planning, budgeting, and digital sources of income. Though I've dabbled with a little bit of this stuff, most of it's still unfamiliar with me too. So I'll still be doing a lot of learning, and I'll be taking all of you with me for the journey. All right, so let's pull up this Excel sheet and see how we got to 180K in debt. So as you can see, the tuition ranges between $14,450 to $14,930 for the first 7 terms. Part of that is due to St. Augustine freezing the tuition rate during the pandemic. But now that people are going back on campus, they have increased the tuition for January 2022. So sadly, tuition is still continuing to rise. So we total all that up, my total tuition cost was $119,640. So basically $120,000. Looking at my expenses tab, this is pretty much the cost of my apartment and how much it costs to live from month to month. During my 3 years, I've had a couple of different living situations, so you'll see that number fluctuate quite a bit. But when it's all said and done, if we're going to when I graduate in April, we're up to $51,546 for total living expenses. This also includes the clinical rotations that I've been on, so any hotels or any Airbnbs or any food or expenses I had during clinicals, this is included as well. So if we divide this up into months, the average living cost ended up being $1,610 a month. That includes the housing and living expenses. So adding all that up, if we're just going to when I graduate at the end of April, the total amount of debt is $167,186. But my lease here actually ends in October, and I'm taking the NPTE at the end of July. So I just calculated this as if I'm going all the way through to the end of October, and if that's the case, I'll have a total debt of $179,561, which is where we get the $180,000 debt. So if this plan is gonna work, we're gonna need to be consistent, and to do that, we need to create a budget. And now, so let's pull up that Excel sheet so I can show you how that budget sheet works. All right, so as you guys can see, I have a budget square for each month of 2022. We'll start out with January, which is where we're currently at. In that first column, I have the dates. This is when the bills are due, or for categories such as food, where it's ever changing, it's where I put the last date of when I updated it. In the next column over, we have all the different expenses, from rent to car gas to food. Anything that I spend my money on monthly, it's here. And if I spend my money on anything else throughout the month that's not on here, I'll put it on here. That way I'm always keeping track of my money. Next column over, we see the amount that I expect to pay each month for these things. And then the next column over is the spend, which is how much I'm actually spending. And then the column over to that is the difference of what I anticipated to spend and how much I'm actually spending. And this is nice because as I update this weekly or however often I do, I get to see exactly how much money I have left to spend and what. cut and if I'm overspending or if I'm good and I have money to save. This allows us to be as predictable as possible, so when we plan what we want to do and set our goals, we should be pretty close to it. So we look at January, I'm spending about $1,263 on rent. The rest of those expenses end up being about $800, so we end up with a total of $2,063 I expect to spend per month, or $24,756 per year. As you can see, I don't have too many expenses that I spend on each month, thankfully. I have a fiance that has been working for over a year now and is very good at their finances, so she's actually helping to pay some other things while I'm trying to pay back the student debt. So basically, all you see here is all that I'm responsible for. Alright, so now let's dive into the debt and our timeline. So $180K in debt, 5 years. But if we continue our living costs, that's roughly $24,000 a year. So combining that together, we're really paying about $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month. And before we get into the plan, gotta talk about some considerations. Well, one, because interest is frozen right now, but two, I'm fortunate enough to have been able to loan a lot of this money from family members, so I will just be paying the exact amount that I loan. And before we get into the plan, I just want to point out some other considerations. So I really want to work 3 days a week, 10 hours a day. The reason I want to do this is because I need those extra days if I want to be able to work on my YouTube, work on these businesses that I want to start up with my peeps. And quite honestly, 5 days a week, it just burns me out. But obviously, 30 hours a week by itself is not gonna get us where we need to be. So how do we make up that income? That's where the digital income sources come in. So what are digital income sources? It's basically any way you can make money from home, just working off your computer. So some of the things that I'm thinking of trying or have tried are website design, e-commerce, email marketing, podcast editing, Google ads, Facebook ads, content management, and copywriting. At this point, I'm not 100% sure that I'm gonna learn all of them, but I'm definitely gonna learn most of them since they are all tied together. But before we get deeper into that, let's just talk about why we are choosing to do digital income sources. For one, these are lucrative, high dollar skills. These are skills where if you're efficient, you know what you're doing, you have the reputation, you can easily make over $100 an hour. Secondly, it's on your time and your terms, which means you can basically adjust your work schedule to your school schedule or whatever it may be, so it's school friendly. I will say the biggest challenge will be at the start when we're just trying to get new clients. I will say I used to work with a business partner and we were just making websites aimed for physical therapists, and we were able to sell one of our websites for $1,000. So take that for what it is. All right, so let's move on to the plan. Let's recap. Tuition plus living expenses, total debt, $180K. We gotta pay that off over 5 years, which means $36,000 a year, or $3,000 a month. Having said that, I understand that businesses take time to build. And so that's why we're gonna ramp up the amount of debt per year, starting with a base of $30,000 in year one. $30,000 doesn't sound too bad, but we also gotta consider that living expenses are still there. This means year one, we're doing $30,000 a year plus 24.6K in living expenses, which will be going on in each of these years. This means in year one that we will need to make at least $54,600 after taxes. In year two, we're ramping it up to 34K of debt that we're paying off while maintaining the same living expenses. So now we're up to 58.6K there. In year three, we're ramping it up another 4K, so now we're paying off 38K in debt, plus same living expenses, so $62,600 in year three. In year four, we're paying off $42,000 debt, that's another 4K jump, plus the same living expenses, so $66,600. Then in year five, final year, same jump, 4K, so $46K in debt, plus same living expenses, so that totals out to $70,600 in year five. Now the good news is if we keep up with this, we actually pay 10K over the debt that we planned. And so the good news is if we stick to this, we will pay off 190K of debt, even though we only have 180K, so we're actually overshooting this by 10K. And so you might be asking, oh, why are you overshooting this by 10K? Well, one, I think it's always good to overshoot, that way if you fall short, you're still there. And secondly, I like to reward myself for meeting big goals. And so to reward myself for meeting this big goal, I plan to give myself a 4-week vacation to wherever with whoever I want. And honestly, for accomplishing such a big feat, I think that's completely fair. So let's hop into the timeline real quick of when this is gonna happen. This 5-year challenge officially starts in September. The reason for that is finishing up my clinicals in April, then I have graduation at the end of April, and I take my boards at the end of July. And so I plan to start working in September. But no breaks, just because we're not officially starting till September doesn't mean we're not starting. Just like how there's before the season, there's a preseason. And so from January to May, that's when we're really gonna be self-investing and learning how to do all this stuff, from website design, e-commerce, email marketing, maybe podcast editing, Google ads, Facebook ads, content management, copywriting. And my goal from January to May is just to be able to practice all of these things with a discounted or free client. And if I can meet that goal where I give almost a month, if not a month, to each one, really get good at it or really get better at it, get some experience with a free or discounted client. If I can do that with all the ones that I want to in this list, then I gotta reward myself. I'm an incentive driven person, so I'm making mini goals, mini rewards, in this case trimester goals. And so if I make that, then I'm gonna give myself $150 to spend money to spend on whatever I want. Now that I'm on a tight budget, the spend money really hits different. In the second pre-trimester from June to August, not only are we gonna be landing our first PT job that hopefully pays at least $40 an hour, which will get us about $3,500 a month, but this is also the trimester where we will be having at least $1K a month through digital income. And with digital income, beginning is always very difficult because that's when you're building your reputation. And because I feel this is one of the hardest and biggest steps, I will be rewarding myself a $500 shopping spree for meeting both these goals. And then to round out the goals in 2022, September through December, our first official trimester of this 5-year, 180K debt-free challenge. I need to be able to maintain that job that's paying us at least $40 an hour, working 30-hour week, while also maintaining at least $1,000 a month from digital income clients. It's one thing to get them during the last trimester. This trimester, we're focused on, can we maintain that while working those 30 hours a week? Because if we can, that's huge. Not to mention, it's the holidays. So we can meet that goal. We are doing a $1,000 shopping spree for the holiday. And for the following 2 trimesters of the first year of the debt-free challenge, we're basically going to up our goals with that digital income 1K each trimester. So for that first trimester, we're making 3.5K with the PT job. We're making 1K with the digital income job. PT salaries pretty much could stay the same throughout the whole year. And so now we're up in that digital income 1K each trimester. So then trimester 2, still getting 3.5K a month, and then 2K now a month on digital income. And then the third trimester from May to August, still same PT salary, but we're gonna aim for 3K in digital income per month. And the craziest part is, if we meet these goals, we're actually overshooting what we were originally going for per year in paying off debt. So really, we might even be able to do this before 5 years. But of course, only time is gonna tell. That's pretty much it for today. We'll probably be doing this series once to twice a month. Got a lot of other content we gotta get out there as well. But if you want more real-time updates, make sure you're following on IG. And if you're new and you like this content, make sure to subscribe. And if y'all are feeling the music, make sure to check the description box. Shout out to the Blossom crew for the music, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.
My verses lately been tragedies. I've been feeling sad when I diss y'all who talk twice as big, but can never live up to half of me. Sorry, but I get satisfaction singing who dished it out to me. After this shit, I have to play catch up with me. I've been losing friends and finding them in the city you bring. I guess it's too dry in California where you've been told you were smart your whole life. That being told you wrong makes you feel come and go, yeah. Rock and roll, yeah. Can't control, yeah.